Number 4, doctrine is dull and impractical. Well, find a new church because your pastor ain't doing it right. How about this? How about just study the Word the way it was meant to be studied? Doctrine is dull and impractical. Yes, it is dull and impractical if you're not applying it to your life. But you begin to apply it to your life and it will become very real very fast. I love Luke 24:32. Luke 24:32. Jesus met the 2 men on the road of Emmaus. Remember this story at the end of Luke? He meets these 2 men after the resurrection and he's walking. They don't recognize it's him. And he begins to tell them stuff about himself. What'd they say? Did not our hearts burn as he gave us a hot dog party? Did not our hearts burn as he opened the Scriptures to us? Number 5. Doctrine is over most people's heads. We let it be because we don't try. I've been accused in this church many times, lovingly accused, of going over people's heads. And let me tell you something, I've never in my life wanted to do that. But I've got to preach Jesus. And there are things about Jesus that we have to really think about. And if I say something that you don't get the first time, know this. I will say it again, and I will say it again, and I'll say it again, because probably it was something very important. We should never not talk about something just because it's difficult to talk about. That's why people don't talk about hell anymore. That's why people don't talk about the Trinity anymore. That's why people don't even talk about the Jesus is the only way to heaven anymore. It's because that's hard to talk about. But we have to do it. Number 6. Why learn doctrine when we don't even live up to the light we already have? That is twisted logic. But it's logic some people use. Let me ask you this. Do you live up to the first commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength? No. But does that mean you don't need to learn the second one too? Love your neighbor as yourself? Seven and final. And I've heard somebody say this, and I thought it was just interesting to put it in. Somebody said this one time. The key goal is that the Bible master us, not that we master the Bible. What is that? What is that a bright way of saying? We don't need to study it. We just need to just let it. I learned by osmosis. I'll put it on my head and let it sink in. All the science guys got a little chuckle. Let me say this. You've heard me use the phrase pious gas bag. It takes a pious gas bag to say something like that. Oh, we don't want to master the Bible. We want to let the Bible master us. Well, of course we want the Bible to master us, but you cannot be mastered by a word that you don't know. We must study the Word. We must study the Word. Doctrine will save us. Now, when I say that, I want to make sure you understand my qualification. Jesus saves, and only Jesus saves our soul. But doctrine will save us from theological food poisoning. You ever go to a restaurant and 4 hours later wish you hadn't? Our body will not accept rotted food. It regurgitates it. Your spirit cannot receive false teaching. Shouldn't be able to anyway. Because it makes it sick. Ultimately, the reason why doctrine is so important is because our doctrines are what we believe, what we hold to, where we stand. Paul is doctrine, 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 doctrine throughout this book. And when we study it, we're going to study it the way he wrote it. I'm not just going to sit here and try to find three ways for you to apply this text to your life so you can have a happy, healthy, better life. I'm going to say this is what he wrote and this is what he meant. Sometimes application is going to be tough. But we're going to study it because that's the way it was written. I'm going to finish with an illustration and then we'll be done. The seriousness of doctrine, that we are right in our doctrine, can be compared to an army captain whose job it is to shoot a missile. I think about this because y'all know Mike Vespucci, one of my dear friends and young men who did karate and was here in our church. He went away and they sent him to Bahrain to work this huge missile thing. And this is the kid who used to sleep on my couch many nights and was the goofiest kid I ever met. And now he's in charge of shooting. He's in charge of shooting missiles. And if he ever sees this, I'm nervous. This is my point. When Michael went to school, they devoted a lot of time to teach him how to navigate that missile. And one of the things that I'm sure they taught him was 10 degrees off. Doesn't look like much when you start. But the further that missile gets away from where it started, 10 degrees off is the difference between life and death. It's a difference between hitting the right target and hitting the wrong target. Hitting your enemy, hitting your friend. Beloved, when we look at doctrine, we may be going through and we may be studying and we may say, oh, well, we're just a little off. Let me tell you something. That little bit is what sprung the Jehovah's Witness movement. That little bit is what got Joseph Smith out there starting that movement with the Mormons. 10 degrees in the beginning is a huge mistake in the end. We have to seek to be right in all of our doctrines. Let's pray.